You ever look in the mirror and feel like the world's walking all over you? You do everything right. You're polite. You say yes when you mean no. You bend so much, people forget you got a spine. You hold the door, you bite your tongue, you shrink yourself to keep the peace, and still somehow they disrespect you. That's not kindness. That's not goodness. That's fear wearing a smile. Let me make something real clear. There's a big difference between being a good man and being the nice guy. A good man stands tall. He knows who he is. His yes means yes. His no means no. The nice guy, he's scared. Scared of rejection, scared of confrontation, scared of being seen. See, the world doesn't need another man who hides behind fake smiles and watered down words. It doesn't need another man folding his backbone into politeness just to avoid tension. It needs men who have the courage to be real. And being real, that's not always comfortable. It's not always easy. But it is necessary. Now you might say, but I just want to be kind. I just want to be liked. Let me tell you something. You can be kind without being a doormat. You can be respectful without being invisible. The problem is when you start giving people power they never earned, thinking that if you make yourself smaller, quieter, more agreeable, they'll finally accept you. But the truth, the moment you sell your truth for approval, you've already lost the game. That nice guy label, it's a mask, and you wear it thinking it keeps you safe. You think, if I'm nice enough, they won't leave me. If I'm easy enough, they won't argue. If I just keep peace, everything will be okay. But inside, you're angry, you're tired, you're starting to forget who you even are. I've seen it too many times. Men pretending everything's fine, biting their tongue, saying yes when they're screaming no on the inside. They think they're being noble, but they're just being silent. And silence doesn't build respect, it builds resentment. Quiet resentment that eats away at you until one day you explode, or worse, you disappear completely. You want to be a good man, be honest, be present. Be willing to say the hard thing when no one else will. Being a good man means showing up, not just for others, but for yourself. It means having the strength to look someone in the eye and say, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Let people be uncomfortable. Let them misunderstand you. That's not your burden to carry. Your burden is to walk in truth, even if it makes the room colder, even if it means you stand alone for a while. Because what you gain in self-respect is worth more than 100 shallow handshakes and fake smiles. You weren't born to beg for love or plead for space. You were born to stand in your full weight as a man. And I'm telling you right now, stop chasing acceptance. Start choosing integrity. Because when a man knows who he is, the world doesn't shake him. It meets him. You ever catch yourself saying yes when everything in you is screaming no? You nod, you smile, you go along with plans you hate, conversations that drain you, relationships that don't serve you, all because deep down you're afraid of what'll happen if you say no. Afraid they'll get mad, afraid they'll walk away, afraid they'll stop liking you. So you keep giving people what they want, even if it costs you pieces of yourself. That's the disease of approval, and it's a slow death. You start by compromising here and there, shrinking your voice just a little, biting your tongue a little more, laughing at jokes that ain't funny, taking on burdens that ain't yours. You think, if I just stay agreeable, stay helpful, they'll accept me, they'll see my worth. But they don't. You know why? Because you've stopped giving them you. You've started feeding them this polite, polished, empty shell of a person who's scared to make waves. And people don't respect what they don't feel. They can feel when you're faking. They can tell when you're performing. It's like a scent in the air. Desperation masked as kindness. You think you're playing it safe, but what you're really doing is hiding. And you can't earn love from the shadows. You can't demand respect when you won't even stand in your truth. Let me talk to you about James. James was the kind of guy everybody called good. He was generous, always there. Lending money even when he didn't have it, saying whatever you want to his girlfriend like it was a script, taking on extra shifts at work even though no one ever said thank you. He thought loyalty meant sacrifice, thought giving more would eventually lead to someone giving back. But life doesn't work like that. His girlfriend left him for a man who had boundaries, a man who didn't just agree with everything she said. His coworkers, they gave him more work because they knew he wouldn't say no. And his so-called friends, only showed up when they needed something. Nobody ever checked on James. Nobody ever asked him how he was doing. You know why? Because James trained them to take. He taught them that his needs came last. He spent so much time trying to be liked that he forgot how to be known. And what broke James wasn't the breakup, the burnout, or the betrayal. It was when his own mother said, "You're too good for this world." And something in him snapped. He realized, "I'm not too good. I've just never expected better. Never asked for more. Never stood up for myself." Approval feels nice, but it's cheap fuel. It runs out fast. Real respect, real love, that comes when you're honest, when you stop performing, when you show up fully, even if that means not everyone claps for you. Because at the end of the day, being liked isn't the goal. Being you is. And that's more than enough. Let me tell you something. It's time to kill the lie that having boundaries makes you cold or rude. That lie has kept too many men small, silent, and stretched thin. Boundaries are not some angry wall you build to push the world away. They're not weapons. They're not ultimatum. Boundaries are doors with locks. And only the people who knock with respect deserve to walk through. See, the nice guy has been tricked into thinking that being liked means being available to everybody all the time. He thinks love means never saying no. He thinks saying, "I can't do that," makes him selfish. He believes that being needed equals being valued. So he overcommits, he overgives. And every time he gives a little more than he should, he tells the world, "I don't need rest. I don't need space. I don't need respect." But that's not generosity. That's self-betrayal dressed up in politeness. Nature doesn't work that way. Look at the ocean, calm, powerful, beautiful. But even it says this far and no further. Even the ocean, with all its grace, draws a line. And when you cross it, you feel the consequence. That's not cruelty. That's order. That's wisdom. That's nature's boundary in action. You've got people in your life right now. Maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's even your family who keep taking from you. Not because they're bad, not because they hate you, but because you never told them where the line was. You smiled when you should have spoken. You gave when you were already empty. You kept the peace on the outside while you went to war on the inside. And they kept crossing that line you never drew. That's not on them. That's on you. You teach people how to treat you. Every time you say yes out of fear, you reinforce the lie that your time and energy are for sale. Every time you let someone slide because you didn't want to be difficult, you hand them permission to do it again. Respect doesn't come from how much you do for others. It comes from how clearly you honor yourself. Boundaries don't push the right people away. They filter them. They tell the world, "I love you. But I love me too. I will help you, but not at the cost of my peace. I will be there, but I will not be used." And when you start living like that, something shifts. People listen differently. They speak to you with more care. You start to move through life not as someone desperate to be included, but as someone worthy of being valued. It starts with you, with one firm no, with one honest, "That doesn't work for me." With one moment where you finally decide that your time, your heart, your mind are sacred ground, not open parking lots. And the moment you draw that line, not only do people see you differently, you see you differently. They told you being soft was virtuous, that if you were always agreeable, always gentle, always accommodating, the world would call you a good man. But let me ask you something, when the storm comes, do you want soft or do you want solid? When life breaks your back and your family's looking at you for direction, do you think softness is enough? Being soft isn't the same as being good. Goodness is rooted in strength. It takes strength to be patient, strength to forgive, strength to protect. See, somewhere along the way, men were sold the idea that masculinity is dangerous, that strength must mean control, that leadership means oppression. But that's not masculinity. That's ego. True masculinity, that's responsibility. It's the weight a man carries quietly, not for praise, not for power, but because it's who he is. Softness without structure leaves you unreliable. You can't be water all the time. Eventually, you have to be the rock, the foundation. When everything else is shaking, someone has to hold it together. That's the role of a man with purpose. That's the man your woman needs. Not someone who disappears into silence when things get hard. Not someone who agrees just to keep the peace. Not someone who waits for direction when the moment calls for decision. Your kids don't want a ghost of a father. They want a presence. They want your voice, your attention, your example. And your future, it doesn't want a man who says, I'll try. It wants a man who says, I'll do it. The world doesn't hand out rewards for being pleasant. It responds to discipline, to integrity, to strength, to truth. And sometimes that truth, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't come wrapped in a smile or softened by politeness. It's raw, it's real, and it demands courage to speak. But when you speak it, when you live it, people may not always agree, but they'll remember you. They'll know you stand for something. And more importantly, you will know that you never folded just to fit in. There's a reason you don't see lions explaining themselves to sheep. The lion doesn't need to roar to be respected. He doesn't have to announce his presence. He walks and the whole field adjusts. Not because of what he says, but because of what he is, unapologetic, whole, grounded, and that's you. Or it could be, if you stopped worrying about being liked and started living like you were born to lead, because you weren't made to be the background. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't made to trade your voice for approval. You weren't made to be soft all the time. You were made to protect, to provide, to speak, to stand, to serve, to lead. So stop chasing validation. Start owning your space. You're not here to be liked by sheep. You're here to remember you're a lion. There's a reason you don't see lions explaining themselves to sheep. The lion doesn't need to justify his presence. He doesn't need to bark orders, raise his voice, or put on a show. He walks through the field, calm, steady, unbothered, and the sheep scatter. Not because he roared, not because he chased them, but because of what he is. See, when you know who you are, you don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to lower yourself to be accepted by people who were never meant to understand you in the first place. That's the trap, the need to be liked, to be welcomed, to be palatable. But greatness doesn't beg for applause. It just is. And the truth is, some people will fear your presence, not because you did anything wrong, but because your strength reminds them of what they've buried in themselves. Your confidence makes their doubt uncomfortable. Your discipline exposes their excuses, so they call you arrogant, intense, too much. But don't shrink. Don't explain. Don't water yourself down just to blend in with sheep who've never known what it means to lead. You're not here to make them comfortable. You're here to walk with purpose, to move with silence and strength, to hold your head high, not in pride, but in presence. The lion doesn't roar for attention. He roars when it's time to protect, to lead, to command the ground he walks on. So stop looking for permission. You don't need it. You're not here to be liked by sheep. You're here to remember you're a lion. Act like it. The nice guy believes that if he just stays quiet, if he keeps his head down and avoids conflict, life will somehow reward him. He thinks that if he makes himself smaller, he'll finally be accepted. He convinces himself that shrinking keeps the peace, but peace without self-respect, that's not peace. That's a slow, quiet kind of prison. And every day you choose to play small, you're not just avoiding rejection, you're rejecting yourself. You know that moment when something inside you says, speak up, and you don't? When it says, set the boundary, and you hesitate. That's not humility. That's fear dressed as politeness. That's you choosing comfort over growth. You think your silence is protecting you, but it's actually burying you. You're not avoiding the storm. You're just drowning quietly in it. There's a war out there, a war in your relationships where you feel unseen, a war in your career where you keep getting passed over because you won't raise your hand, a war in your own mind, where every day you wrestle with the gap between who you are and who you pretend to be. And I'm telling you now, your softness won't save you in that fight, but your truth will, your fire will. That fire in your gut that says, I want more. That voice that whispers, this isn't who I really am. That's not something to push down. That's something to lean into. There's actual data backing this up. Studies out of the University of British Columbia show that men who are assertive, not aggressive, assertive, are seen as more attractive, more respected, and more effective in leadership and relationships. And you know why? Because people are drawn to clarity, to conviction, to presence. Not loudness, not ego, but grounded, steady power. Nice guys finish last, not because they're not good men, but because they never step up, they wait, they hesitate. They hope someone will give them permission to lead, to speak, to stand. But no one is coming to hand you that permission. That's something you have to take with action. You've been conditioned to believe that playing small is noble, that dimming your light is humility. But the truth is, the world is desperate for men who show up at full strength, who tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable, who live with intention even when it's not easy. You don't inspire people by hiding. You don't lead by apologizing for your presence. So stop holding back. Stop waiting to be chosen. Stop thinking that being nice will earn you a life you haven't claimed. The world needs you, not half of you, not the edited version of you, not the agreeable shell of you, but all of you, full volume, full power, full truth. Stand up, speak out, play big. The world is watching. You were not born to please. That was never your purpose. You weren't placed here to shrink yourself for the comfort of others, to nod along with things that break your spirit just so you could keep the peace. You weren't born to play small, to ask quietly for what you've already earned just by showing up, by surviving, by standing. You were not made to fold. You were not made to apologize for the space you take up or the strength you carry. You were born to stand firm. You were born to speak the truth even when your voice shakes, to live loud, not with noise, but with conviction, to lead not by force, but by presence. You were made to protect your peace, your people, your purpose. You were built to create something lasting, something real, something that outlives you. That's what a man does. That's what you were born to do. But somewhere along the way, the world convinced you that being nice was safer, that keeping your head down would make life easier, that if you just smiled enough, gave enough, agreed enough, eventually someone would see your worth and reward you for it. But that day never came, did it? And it won't, because your worth was never meant to be proven to them. It was meant to be claimed by you. So let's be done with it. That nice guy story. Tear it up, rip it out, burn it if you have to. That chapter is over. It served no one, not even you. It made you quiet when you needed to speak. It made you small when you were made for more. It made you question yourself when everything in you already knew the answer. This is the turning point, right here, right now. The moment where you stop waiting for permission. The moment where you stop hoping the world will finally understand you. Because the truth is, you already are who you've been looking for. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to perform, to prove, to beg. You just need to remember who you are and walk like it. So rise up. Rise up as the man who knows his worth, who speaks with clarity, who moves with intention. The man who can look in the mirror and say, I'm not asking anymore, I'm owning it. Because that man, that's the real one. That man doesn't chase validation. He commands respect. He doesn't blend in. He builds. He doesn't apologize for his fire. He uses it. And after this moment right here, you don't go back, because you're not the nice guy anymore. You're the real one.